Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California, at a time when the modern technology industry did not yet exist. He entered the world quietly, but under circumstances that would shape his lifelong sense of identity and purpose. His biological parents, Joanne Schiebel and Abdul Fattah Jandali, were young graduate students who were not married at the time, and social pressure forced them to give their child up for adoption. That decision left a permanent emotional imprint on Steve Jobs, who would later describe adoption not as abandonment, but as destiny. He was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a working-class couple living in Mountain View, California, in what would later be known as Silicon Valley. Paul Jobs was a machinist, a quiet man who loved working with his hands, and Clara Jobs was an accountant who provided stability and warmth at home. From an early age, Steve learned the value of craftsmanship by watching his father carefully build and repair things, teaching him that even the parts nobody sees should be made with care. That lesson would later become a core philosophy behind Apple's obsession with design and detail. As a child, Steve was intelligent but restless. He questioned authority, struggled with formal education, and often felt bored in school. Teachers noticed his brilliance but also his defiance. He skipped a grade early on, which only increased his sense of isolation. He didn't fit in socially, and he didn't care to. Instead, he gravitated toward electronics, mechanics, and ideas that challenged the status quo. Growing up in the heart of Silicon Valley during the early days of computing, Steve was surrounded by engineers, hobbyists, and innovators. As a teenager, he joined the Hewlett-Packard Explorers Club, where engineers discussed cutting-edge technology. It was there that he first saw computers up close, not as corporate machines, but as tools that could empower individuals. During high school, Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak, a brilliant but shy electronics engineer who shared his passion for technology. The two formed an unlikely partnership. Wozniak had the technical genius to build machines, while Jobs had the vision to imagine what those machines could mean for the world. Together, they worked on small projects, including building blue boxes that could hack telephone systems. Though illegal, the experience taught Jobs an important lesson: technology could bend reality, and small teams could challenge powerful systems. After graduating high school, Steve enrolled at Reed College in Oregon, a prestigious liberal arts school. But he quickly realized that traditional education didn't align with his values. After just one semester, he dropped out, unwilling to spend his parents' savings on classes that didn't inspire him. However, he didn't leave learning behind. He continued attending classes he found meaningful, including a calligraphy course that would later influence Apple's typography and design philosophy. During this period, Steve lived a minimalist lifestyle, sleeping on friends' floors, returning Coke bottles for food money, and searching for spiritual meaning through meditation and Eastern philosophy. This unconventional phase shaped his belief that creativity is born at the intersection of technology and the humanities. In the mid-1970s, the personal computer revolution was beginning, though few people realized it. Computers were massive, expensive, and accessible only to corporations and universities. Steve Jobs saw something different. He believed computers should be personal, intuitive, and beautiful. In 1976, working out of the Jobs family garage, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and a small group of collaborators founded Apple Computer. Their first product, the Apple I, was a simple circuit board, but Jobs saw its potential. He persuaded Wozniak to sell it, secured early funding, and began turning Apple into a real company. The release of the Apple II marked a turning point. It was one of the first mass-market personal computers and became a commercial success, transforming Apple into a fast-growing company. Steve Jobs was only in his early 20s, but he was already a millionaire. However, success didn't bring stability. Jobs was intense, demanding, and often difficult to work with. He pushed teams to their limits, driven by a belief that perfection was not optional. Some admired his vision, while others struggled under his leadership style. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh, a revolutionary computer with a graphical user interface and a mouse, inspired in part by research at Xerox PARC. The famous 1984 Super Bowl commercial announced Apple as a rebellious force against conformity. The Macintosh would eventually change computing forever, but its initial sales were disappointing. Internal power struggles emerged, and Apple's board began to question Jobs' leadership. In a dramatic and painful moment, Steve Jobs was pushed out of the very company he had co-founded. He was only 30 years old. Being fired from Apple devastated Jobs. He later described it as one of the most painful experiences of his life, but also one of the most important. Free from Apple, he started NeXT, a company focused on building powerful computers for education and research. Although NeXT computers were technologically advanced, they were expensive and commercially unsuccessful. Yet, beneath the surface, NeXT was building software that would later become the foundation of Apple's future operating systems. Around the same time, Jobs purchased a small animation studio from George Lucas. That studio would become Pixar Animation Studios. Initially struggling financially, Pixar eventually found success with Toy Story in 1995, the first fully computer-animated feature film. The film's success transformed Pixar into a cultural and financial powerhouse and established Jobs as a major figure in the entertainment industry. By the mid-1990s, Apple was struggling. The company was losing money, its products lacked direction, and its future was uncertain. In 1997, Apple acquired NeXT, bringing Steve Jobs back to the company he had founded. What began as a consulting role quickly turned into a full leadership takeover. Jobs streamlined Apple's product line, eliminated confusion, and refocused the company on innovation and design. He brought back the rebellious spirit that had defined Apple in its early days. Under Jobs' leadership, Apple launched a series of groundbreaking products. The iMac redefined personal computing with its colorful, user-friendly design. The iPod transformed the music industry, followed by iTunes, which reshaped how digital media was distributed. Then, in 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone, a device that combined a phone, an internet communicator, and an iPod into one. The iPhone didn't just change Apple, it changed the world. It redefined communication, business, entertainment, and daily life. Despite his professional success, Jobs faced serious health challenges. In 2003, he was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. Though initially treatable, the disease would return years later. Jobs continued working through illness, driven by the same intensity that had defined his career. In 2011, he stepped down as CEO of Apple, passing the role to Tim Cook. Steve Jobs passed away on October 5, 2011, at the age of 56. The world mourned not just a businessman, but a visionary who had reshaped multiple industries. His legacy lives on through Apple's products, Pixar's films, and a philosophy that values creativity, simplicity, and courage. Steve Jobs' story is not one of a perfect hero. He was flawed, demanding, and complex. But his life proves that innovation is born from curiosity, failure, and relentless belief in a vision. From an adopted child to a college dropout, from a garage to the world's most valuable company, Steve Jobs didn't just build products, he built a new way of thinking.